A Shaman from Paradox going up against Leeroy. It's a Rogue. And I can tell you that this is a odd Rogue from Leeroy. And the Shaman coming out looks like it's Shudderwock. So it's going to be Shudderwock Shaman with those Giggling Inventors, which have just made Shudderwock feel more in. I mean, it takes up board space, though. That's the problem, you know, when you've got...
True, but interestingly here, it's not a classic Shudderwock style. This is more of a tempo list. It's not running things like Grumble. It's not looking to go infinite. Basically, this is a tempo deck which uses Shudderwock as kind of a finisher to sort of basically just create a big board.
Yeah, because it's got the Calamos on there as well. So yeah, this was actually one of the first iterations that we saw of Shudderwock. People saw Calamos and they were like, Calamos Shudderwock, that sounds like insane value. And then they were trying to run Elemental Calamos, like Elemental Calamos Shamans. But let's see how it goes. Not much to play here for Paradox. He doesn't have the best opening hand in the world.
He does have a Corridor Creeper, which is potentially very powerful because this deck does run 2 unstable evolutions. So if you can potentially reduce that Corridor Creeper down and then have a swing turn with like a Lightning Storm, then you can potentially swing the board super hard and make like an 8-drop or something. Yeah,
for sure. But as it stands at this point in time, he's not got much to do. But he is roping that turn 1. I think just to trigger Leeroy a little bit, and Leeroy's face says, "Okay, I'll deal. I'll deal."
I mean, it's good to keep your opponent guessing, but I think Leeroy knows there's no 1-drops in Paradox's hand.
He's just going to dagger up. He does have that Vicious Fledgling to run down, and honestly, I mean, what answers could Paradox have in this hand for a Vicious Fledgling? He's obviously got the coin, so coin hex is always an opportunity to think about. He has got that Saronite in there as well, which is obviously a good way of just stopping it from hitting face.
Paradox does actually run 2 Lightning Bolts and one Glacial Shard in his deck. So potentially a Lightning Bolt would be a great answer for a Fledgling if it came down. So Leeroy might be wanting to play the Mukla instead here.
Yeah. I mean, Leeroy will know, so there is a good chance that there's going to be some sort of answer here if he just shoves that Fledgling. Mukla will fill the hand up a little bit of Paradox. I mean, how many cards is he running on now? And there you go, you were completely correct.
Yeah. The thing is, because Paradox is off the board right now, he's not going to make great use of these bananas for quite a while. So it's good to get the 5/5 stats out here. It potentially can get hexed, but it would mean that Paradox has to use the coin to do so, which is going to hurt his future turns.
So decent start for Leeroy right now. And like you said, the bananas can't quite be used yet because you really would, you know, ideally the bananas are great when you're running like a token or a zoo type deck list where you're going to get value out of the 1/1. Paradox playing something and not using the bananas with charge, this just feels bad, you know, in a lot of situations.
Yeah, it's not great tempo unless you've already got something ready to attack usually.
So let's have a look at what Paradox has got in hand here. I mean, does anything jump out to you as a strikingly obvious play? I mean, what would you do in this scenario if you were him?
I mean, when I see Paradox's hand, I'm thinking I'm not going to get board control through conventional minion trading. I'm looking at this Electro Storm Surge, and I'm looking at this Lightning Storm and saying this could be potentially a swing turn when I have 6 mana to completely clear the Rogue's board. And then this Corridor Creeper that they have is probably going to be maybe 1 or 2 mana by that point. And then once that's happened, you have that swing, you clear the boards, you put down your Creeper, and then you can follow up with Fungal Monsters, etc., etc. So for the meantime, Paradox just basically has to put up kind of roadblocks, maybe make a bit of a nuisance out of himself, just until he gets 6 mana available for that swing turn.
But what you didn't see behind the scenes there is I asked John Bray to keep talking, and he did, because I had to go to a harm reduction thing. Thanks, John Bray.
I was just about to phrase a question to you, and then you dipped off, and I was like, okay, we'll just come back to myself.
I just rolled my hands. I was like, please keep talking so I can sort this out. It's because when the noises that the Shaman Murloc was making was so incomprehensibly loud, I couldn't hear what he was saying. So the Vicious Fledgling does come down on turn 4 here for Leeroy. And again, because there wasn't an answer or even an attempted answer for Mukla, maybe he feels more comfortable doing so. And it doesn't look like he's got too much to work with here, Paradox.
So it's in Paradox's interest to like kind of slow down the Rogue, but Leeroy's start has been very explosive with a 5/5 and a 3/3 that is now unanswered. Fledgling attacking face is always really scary because of Wind Fury. So he's going to respond with just a Chain Gang to maybe soften up the board, stop that Fledgling from adapting, and then try and go for that swing turn with a Lightning Storm. later on.
But Leeroy looks like he's got a very good hand to get through this and get a value out of that fledgling to the face here. I mean, you have that. I guess the decision-making that you make, you want fledgling to go face. There's no other way. If you can find a way for fledgling to go face, you find a way for fledgling to go face. So, I mean, he's got options here. I would be daggering at poison and then...
Yeah. Well, Leeroy knows that there's no volcano from this shaman. So normally, when you're playing a Shadow shaman, you're trying to make your board really healthy here.
Yes.
But in this situation, he's probably just saying, I want to play around Lightning Storm the most, because that's the potential swing. So here we're going for a defensive option, which is going to stop
the Lightning Storm.
Lightning Storm is essentially what he's going for.
And Paradox still doesn't have... He's got 2 Fungal Mancers with nothing on board right now. The tempo just isn't there for him. He wanted that Firefly turn 1, I mean...
Yeah, that would have been great early. But the thing is, he can go for the Fireflies and maybe, like, just a hero power here, and he's just put stuff on board.
Yeah.
If one of those Fireflies just pops away this Divine Shield, that might be good enough to go for that Electro Storm Surge, Lightning Storm swing turn.
And obviously he doesn't know the kind of answers that Leeroy will have in hand right now. He'll have some idea about the list. And, he knows that there's a 4 damage weapon. He knows there's a beefy board. But the more trades that he forces Leeroy to take now, the more time he's got to find an answer and find a swing turn, like you said, with that Lightning Storm. And he, by God, he definitely needs a swing turn because he's got a full hand and nothing on the board right now.
The thing with it, if he does it now, he doesn't get a 0 mana Corridor Creeper. But if he doesn't do it and Leeroy responds with a Fungal Mancer, suddenly his board might be out of range of doing this forever.
This is a big, big turn right now because if he gets a 3 on the Vicious Fledgling, that was a small swing, and he didn't get the 3. It was a risky play to make. It was a risky play to make, but it was a desperate play, and he needed to make it to sort of get himself back on board.
I'm not sure he did. I mean,
you don't think he did?
There is a punish that the Fledgling adapts for more health and things, etc., later on. But if this fails, you only have a 3/3 if it succeeds, and you have like 2 mana next turn. So you can't really develop the board anyway, even if it's a success. And you also don't get that Corridor Creeper down to 0, so you can't even play it along with this play.
There's the health coming out, like you said.
Yeah.
And it's going to be Giggling Inventor, probably the card of the expansion. And Leeroy's now going to make his board very wide. He's seen one Lightning Storm, I guess, so he's thinking, well, what's the likelihood that there's going to be another one in hand? Obviously, we can see that there is, but...
I mean, he's facing down just 2 mana from Paradox available. Like, what can he really do?
I forgot that he overloaded that much, because the new overload there as well.
With the double spell effects, you do get double the overload as well.
So Leeroy, very happy to go wide on that particular turn, and Vicious Fledgling is very well protected too, and like you said, no Volcano, so he's not going to be super worried about the health status of his board. Just as long as it's not weak to Lightning Storm in some way, shape or form, he's probably going to be happy.
Yeah.
And now he has got, I mean, the world's his oyster at this point. He's got plenty of things that he can do. I think jamming Vicious Fledgling to face is the first thing that we'd all think about just to see what we get.
Right. Paradox does run 2 mind control techs, so that's something you might want to try and play around. Maybe make your board super wide. That way it's less chance of it stealing the Fledgling, which is a potential way for Paradox to get back into this.
So Divine Shield seems like the best option. He's been very unlucky with no Wind Fury.
Yeah, I think he's probably, right now, this Fledgling on 4 health is safe enough for any removal that he probably wanted something more aggressive.
Yeah.
But he just wasn't given the option.
But he's still definitely in the driver's seat in this particular matchup. But the more and more turns that pass by, the more and more likely it is, especially when you head towards turn 8 and you have that Kalamos, you've got more Lightning Storms. If you give him any board presence as well, he knows that there are Fungal Mancers there. Do you think he's happy just to say, well, if you Fungal Mancer a single unit with charge, I'm happy with the 2 Giggling Inventor Annoyatrons up?
Yeah. With Paradox only on 7 mana available, he knows the next swings are maybe Hagatha or Kalamos, which are 8 mana plays. So all Leeroy's got to do is set up lethal, essentially.
Yeah, and he has pretty much done that from hand anyway. Obviously, he doesn't know exactly the kind of... I think he's even on board. Is it lethal on board with weapon? He's lethal on board with weapon anyway, so regardless, he's even got that 2 damage burst from hand also.
A potential play that Paradox could have done this turn with 7 mana is Thrall Deficit, which would upgrade this Corridor Creeper into a 9-drop. And if you've got something like Void Lord, it could be a problem. But Leeroy does have a Vast-Spine Slayer in hand, so it shouldn't be something he's too concerned about. There really isn't really any way out for Paradox that I can see.
No, even with the Lightning Storm, you've got all these Divine Shields, it's going to get absolutely nothing done. Maybe he hopes to roll a high roll on that 3 on the right-hand side of the board, which he does.
Oh, he does. So he might be able to survive for now with the Elemental and the Ooze. But Leeroy does have potential 2 from hand with the weapon, with the deckhand, and another 4 from the Crazed Chemist. So there's a lot of damage coming away from Leeroy's side of the board here.
If he gets Wind Fury, I think he can get lethal. Or has he just got lethal anyway? He might just have lethal anyway.
I think he might be 2 off, or is he exact?
I think he is...
Oh, he is exact.
Exact.
Yeah, he is exact.
And if he gets...
I didn't catch the deckhand. All right. Great setup from Leeroy, actually setting up lethal
the turn before, yeah.
Yeah, through a Lightning Storm and a Ooze. So good recognition there.
Yeah, and he, obviously the most important part of that was the fact that he managed to stick that Vicious Fledgling for so long, and I think it was a good turn to go for Mukla on turn 3. And honestly, the opening hand was pretty dire, unfortunately, for Paradox there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it happens from time to time.
I mean, he did have the swing turn available against a lesser board, but facing down a Fledgling and a Mukla was just too much. They had to do it too early.
Do you think he blew it too early with the double Lightning Storm that he got?
I think possibly, because even if it worked, he just didn't have the follow-up to contest the Rogue's board in the future.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean,
there was definitely punishes for not doing it. Fungal Mancer especially was a huge punish. And of course, the Fledgling getting Wind Fury was probably game-losing as well.
Yeah, I think so, for sure. But as it stands, HelloLeeroy takes himself 1-0 up in the series so far. That's his Rogue done. He has got the Paladin and the Warlock to go through now. It is going to be an odd Paladin, and it is that clanky junk Warlock deck that we're not sure how well it's going to work.
Let's just call it Zoo.
I mean, look, end of the day, it looks like a very classic Zoo deck. It could very easily just flood the board and win, you know.
Yeah, I mean, Zoo's always capable of just taking games from any sort of deck. It's one of the most consistent decks throughout Hearthstone's history. Even though Leeroy's running kind of maybe an older version of it, I still think it's got a good chance to win this game.
Yeah, I'm very excited and interested to see how Leeroy managed to pilot that. And he's going to be going up against what is left is the Rogue, which is a odd Rogue from Paradox, and he has got that Warlock, which is a classic Zoo heal lock that has been in the meta for a few weeks and months now. And I think if you look at it, I guess you just lock back in the Shaman, just say, look, it's going to do well against Zoo because I've got that much clear if I get those Lightning Storms and stuff. I
mean, honestly, that Shaman probably has decent matchups against the Paladin as well because of those board swings with the Corridor Creeper. So
just keep slamming it. I mean, you've got to win with it at some point in Conquest. So.
It depends. Sometimes people, when they lose a match with a deck, they want to just put it straight back in. So it's just kind of like a confidence booster.
So it's going to be the Paladin with Glowtron here from HelloLeeroy. And it is going to be Paradox again, just like you said.
With the Shaman again, yeah.
That's not a bad... I mean, Mind Control Tech versus Odd Paladin, I feel it's decent-ish.
The thing with it, if you're just stealing a 1-1, it's actually not that great of a play. What you want to do with Mind Control Tech is combine it with a Lightning Storm.
Yeah.
So you can steal one of their minions and then clear the rest of them on one turn, and that'll give you a big board advantage.
Well, he's definitely got those 2 cards in hand, and he also has that Saronite. Double Mind Control Take might be enough to help him see this early game through, especially. Would have loved to have a 1-drop, though. He'd love to have had Firefly.
Yeah, Firefly is the most important card in this matchup, I'd say, more than like the Lightning Storm than anything else.
And Prince Keleseth as well is always nice to draw on, too. I mean,
that goes without saying.
That's like a 10% win rate boost on pretty much any deck you have, so... And let's see, HelloLeeroy's got Glowtron. It's a decent, it's a 1/3 1-drop. Also magnetic, so it holds some value across the rest of the game as well.
Yeah, so Leeroy's running a mech-style version of Odd Paladin. So it's kind of similar to the old one. You still run level up and all that sort of jazz, but you have the mech synergy now, which allows you to go really tall on the board. So suddenly things like Lightning Storm might not be good enough to clear your board anymore.
Yeah. Well, in hand, he's got a pretty good opening hand, to be honest, because he's got that Maul afterwards too, and then he has a follow-up of Coin Fungal if he wants to get that on board as well, and the Corridor Creeping in hand to allow him to swing things as well. So,
always very happy to see the Divine Shield Maul in any matchup, especially the tempo-oriented ones.
It's a shame that he drew patches, though. You know, no one likes to draw patches.
It's not quite that.
No, it's
I've lost to a fair few patches on turn 9. I'll tell you that.
To be fair, it is still a 9-mana 7/9. It's a body, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So Paradox choosing just to go for the tempo of a 3/3 here.
Yeah, and I think he's worried about things getting out of control here. I mean, Leeroy will know that he wants to play around, and I mean, look at that. He's even got the next magnetic glowbot, which he can also use to keep himself within that 3. Also allow, like you said, things to go a bit taller on board.
He could also just choose to completely ignore the 4-minion threshold anymore because he's already seen one.
Yeah.
Mind control tech, he could just say, all right, then I've seen one. Let's just go completely wide.
Yeah. But the Maul is definitely the turn, and he can make a very easy trade here and keep some Divine Shields on board. So
interesting that he didn't choose to develop one of these 1-drops as well. Getting that Divine Shield buff on the 2 Lost in the Jungles could be potentially really strong here.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, maybe he is just respecting the second mind control tech. I mean, there is, if you wanted an anti-paladin hand, you've definitely got an anti-paladin hand from Paradox right here. Double Lightning Storm again, and a mind control tech, Hagatha.
And Chain Gang just to compete on board right now.
Exactly. So he's actually, you know, whilst he hasn't had the best of starts again, definitely got a mid-rangey hand that will deal with the Paladins it tries to expand.
Now, something that that Leeroy did here, by choosing not to use the buff on the extra 1-mana cards in his hand, is giving him the opportunity to answer this Chain Gang with a Coin Fungalmancer.
Yes.
Which will get some very juicy value trades there.
I'm very interested to see, I mean, you do it on the Divine Shields, right? But
not necessarily.
Yeah, this is what I was saying, because if you don't do it on the Divine Shields, you could have traded one in and then just kept it to 3, but the way he's done it anyway has meant that he's done that regardless, right?
Right, so his Leeroy just trying to keep his board sort of healthy enough to avoid a Lightning Storm swing turn.
Yeah.
He knows this board's big enough to keep the Shaman off the board.
It's Dr. 5, Giggling Inventor comes down.
Expect to see a lot of this card from now until the end of next year, I imagine.
So, Leeroy looks like he has just drawn, is that War Gear?
Yes, that is a War Gear. That is 5-mana, 5/5 magnetic. So he could use that as a buff potentially on this 3/4. Though that doesn't look potentially appetizing here, as it's just going to be eating up Divine Shields.
Yeah, right now you can only clear one of these Annoyatrons at this point in time. And you've got Nightmare Amalgam. It's just a good body, and obviously like a mech has mech synergy in this deck. It's a 3/4. It's basically Spider Tank in this deck, which is great because that was a great card for mech decks back in the day. And then he now also has the option to just slam things a bit wider if he really wants to. Again, I think there's a certain point where you just can't afford to play around mind control tech all game.
Right. So I think Leeroy wants to keep his board threatening whilst not using everything. So I'm surprised he's gone for the Creeper. I thought he might just hold off on that because it's a very good refill. Because this board is potentially too threatening that it might, deserve a Lightning Storm, etc.
It's not a great Lightning Storm though, because actually no, it is. It's okay. I mean, you clear up 4 power at least on board, and if you trade a couple of your minions, and you might even be able to trade off, or you're guaranteed to trade off for that 3/3 Divine Shield if you want to as well. Lightning Storm Mind Control tech can happen this turn, so he can Mind Control tech and then Lightning Storm. That's a bit of a swing turn for him.
Something Paradox is probably thinking about is that he does not want to overload on his turn 7 because of that Hagatha in hand. He definitely wants to be playing that on turn 8. So realistically, if he's going to Storm, it's got to be this turn.
And he can also swing it with the Corridor Creeper because he will at least kill 2 minions here.
Yeah, looks like he's going for a Mind Control tech first. He might just go for a Tar Creeper here because the Storm doesn't look that great. All it's really killing is a 2/1 and a 1/1 and popping that Divine Shield. The health of the 4/6 doesn't matter too much right now.
And he can still get a free Corridor Creeper by trading in something.
Yeah, it might honestly be better to just go for the Tar Creeper and then go for Storms next turn and kind of abandon the Hagatha strategy for now.
Or even he might not even need to Storm if he plays the double Tar Creeper.
Oh, look, he's going for the high roll on the 3/3. Going for that 50-50 again. Misses again.
Oh, that's been bad RNG, but it was a small swing turn for Paradox. It's what he needed. He's a bit devoid on cards in hand right now and doesn't have that many means to draw.
I think his eye is set on that Hagatha for sure.
And Leeroy does have ways to go Tool here to avoid that Hagatha mishap.
He can't really afford to right now. I mean, this board is quite scary. from Paradox's side. If something like Thrall were to come down next turn, with the 5 mana he had available, that could potentially, or even Unstable Evolution.
On the corridor.
Yeah, you can make some very large minions right now.
Oh, God, yeah. He could just out-tool Leeroy with that war gear here.
And if you out-tool Leeroy, and Leeroy tries to counter that by going wide, you have the Hagatha next turn to clear up that.
Syndragosa is not a bad Unstable Evolution.
So I imagine he's going to evolve the MC Tech. Yeah. An 8/8 is big enough, I'd say.
For sure. He might even just slam. He's just thinking about slamming Tar Creeper here. I mean, you could go up to a 7-drop, I think, maximum now for Paradox, and there are some bad 7-drops, so...
Yeah, I mean, a 3/6 is pretty good, and one of the benefits is if the 9/6 does trade into one of these 3-attack creatures, it dies to the Hagatha next turn.
Exactly, so he's actually set himself up really nicely here. Another war gear for Leeroy. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's a good play now because it's just such an easy trade to make for Paradox, and you know he has got late game follow up here as well. He has got the Kalamos, he has got the Shudderwalk, and Leeroy very quickly running out of resources.
Yeah, so Leeroy has to go wide at some point. He might be deciding if I buff up this minion and trade. It's actually got 8 health afterwards, so it's not actually that great to use the buff here.
Well, he's got a 14/11 now.
I'm kind of questioning this a little bit because...
He just dies to Syndragosa.
Yeah, it just dies to the Syndragosa. Like, how much does it matter whether you have a 14/3 here? Sorry, not a 14, a 3-attack big guy or an 8-attack big guy when they both die in 1 hit to the Syndragosa.
And that Syndragosa was basically a free upgrade for him as well. It actually deals with Leeroy's biggest threat. And Paradox is very happy about that. Doesn't even feel the need to play Hagatha right now. Happy to just slap Keleseth on board.
I mean, he might be thinking that Leeroy might just go for a level up or something with this board with 2 dudes available.
Get more value out of the Hagatha.
Yeah, so, and if you can counter a level up, then that's much better than just killing 2 1/1s.
So this looks like a pretty good Hagatha turn, though. If I were Paradox, I can just make it.
I mean, Storm's decent as well.
Yeah, Storm's. I mean,
the thing with Hagatha is it will kill a level up board, and Storm doesn't always kill it.
Yes, it's true. You're very right.
And Storm also doesn't hurt your own stuff. And with a Fungal Monster in hand, you can trade very nicely with the Storm this turn. So I imagine he's going to buff up his Totem and the Keleseth with the Fungal Monster, and then just Storm the rest of it away.
That sounds like a pretty good choice, and Leeroy, like we said, very quickly running out of resources here, and at least as from we know, doesn't have resources to deal with a board like that coming out from Paradox. And it is going to be that Storm. Guaranteed clear of this entire board. And now Leeroy will be thinking, surely he's done with the board clears. Surely that's it.
Now it's my time to put on the gas.
Now I can start spamming my hero power. Harvest Golem. Ooh. Haven't seen that in quite a while. What year is it? I didn't realize we were playing.
Leeroy is going back to his roots with all of his decks today, it seems.
Didn't realize we were playing Arena.
Of course, Harvest Golem provides quite a nice base for some of these magnetic buffs.
He could Hagatha now, but then he has blown all of that board clear for the level up down the line. Does he care, though, is the question. He will kill off his 3/3.
The thing, if he does Hagatha, he's relying off his top decks. And he's killing about half of his own board as well. This is quite awkward for Paradox, because he has no way to sort of compound his advantage right now. He has just removal spells, and it's not going to be able to stop Leeroy from going wide. Yes, there's that clear available once he does decide to go in. But right now, Paradox is kind of just waiting and not really pushing his advantage at all.
I think he's thinking about how many of these little dudes do I need to trade into, because I mean, you always have to be wary of level up and Nod Paladin, you know?
Yeah. I mean, given he has the answer, it's kind of like, I don't really need to worry that much.
He's probably saying, actually, I could either just trade into the Harvest Golem or Slam Face at this point.
I think he's going to go for the Golem because of magnetic buffs are more of a problem for him right now than level up.
And because of that healing totem is the one that is big, it allows him to get really good value out of all of those trades as well.
Ooh, Blessed Maul allows him to
start trading?
Start getting through back on this board, which is exactly what he wants to do.
Damn, I always just get torn.
I'm an avid taunt maul user as well. It is the worst feeling, especially when you keep it in the mulligan phase.
Leeroy trades in, and that was a really good swing back for Leeroy, but again, they're both top decking at this point. Samurai Chain off with the Keleseth is a great pickup as well.
So something like a Vine Cleaver from Leeroy could potentially be really strong. It does run 2 of them.
Has to be Vine Cleaver off the top here for Leeroy to help get him back into a good place. Nightmare Amalgam is not that good place, and it has to be the Patch's turn, which still contests.
But there is that Hex.
Yes, but he doesn't know that, obviously.
He doesn't know.
I'm sure he's thinking, what has he been holding in hand this entire time? I'll have some idea of what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine he's pretty sure he was going to get Hex, but what else can he really do?
I'm pretty sure he knows that the card that's been on the left-hand side of Paradox's hand is either going to be something like Shudderwock, Kalamos, or Hagatha. He knows it's one of those top-end finishers.
So it looks like Leeroy's not really being able to get out of this. Maybe can survive a little bit by rushing this pretty juicy lifesteal taunt here.
But it really only gets him so far. It will get him, well, it should get him 12 HP back on next turn. That's another big, nice draw as well.
I mean, this could be a Hagatha turn.
You just trade the 3-3 and then Hagatha and then slam in the face?
Yeah, put the pressure on. Oh, he's just going to hold on. Because the thing is, Leeroy can't really just do a level up anyway because you only have 2 1-1s and you're not that scared of that. He can't really go for a Vine Cleaver because you have that ooze available. So you kind of, by doing all those trades into the thing, you've given Leeroy so much time to find his Vine Cleavers, find his level ups, find everything he needs.
But I think in Paradox's mind, he's like, well, I've got Hagatha for the level up, I've got Gluttonous Ooze for the Vine Cleaver. I actually don't care about his answers. I'm just going to play the super safe game and take the board, I guess. Another unstable evolution as well, should he want to start. I mean, Fungalmancer is a nice target. There's the Vine Cleaver, like you said. But that is why the Gluttonous Ooze was held back. You know, he wasn't going to use that on the maul. Knew that there was 2 Vine Cleavers in Leeroy's deck.
Yep. Something to note that sort of feeds into Paradox's game plan of taking it really slow is that Leeroy doesn't run Kangor's Endless Army in his deck. So there's no worry about Leeroy having an explosive turn where he resummons all the mechs he's played this turn. So Paradox does have that luxury of taking it very slowly. Imagine we're going to see an Ooze this turn.
Interesting that he held on to it before playing Thrall Deathseer.
Yeah. So you think a 4-4 is better than an average 5-drop? I'm not actually sure on the numbers. It could be the case.
I think it'll be close. I think that must have been the decision making that he went through. He probably just said, your average 5-drop, I could get Fungalmancer, I could get something like that. Maybe it's just better to keep it as a 4-4 and not run the risk. Just make this gives you a guaranteed good board, and he didn't want to run the risk. Of
course, and he also has a guaranteed minion that survives Hagatha being on 4 health. So maybe that's what he was thinking.
So the Blessing and Light comes down. Leeroy not wanting to continue trading, but the big boys are starting to come out for Paradox now. Unstable Evolution. Here we go. It's not a great one.
I think if I was Paradox, I'd just be looking for the most aggressive stuff I can find now.
Ooh.
Does have Rush. You really probably don't want to be trading that.
He's going to trade it.
Okay then.
And he's got some sparks, and now he has to start the Unstable Evolution all over again. I mean, I suppose he's got the mana to do it.
He might be thinking, oh, these sparks are spells once I've played Hagatha.
Yeah, they're also 1-1s with Rush that clean up 1-1s, I suppose.
That is a pretty nice 5-drop. If he got that from his Thrall initially, he'd be very happy. Oh, he's stopping.
I guess
Leeroy is very confused.
I'm kind of confused, but I'm not gonna question. Paradox is the one that's in the lead right now. He can kind of do what he likes.
I mean, again, he stopped on a 4-4 when he could have had a 5-drop. I think Paradox must have done the maths on this.
I think he played the Spark to activate Kalamos.
Right, that is
elementals.
Yeah, that's a good shout there.
So he was happy to take the sparks. He's like, oh wait, I can activate Calamos here. Not sure what an activated Calamos is actually going to get him. Maybe just a board full of 1/1s, but
I would honestly send it to the face.
Slam 8 damage to the face.
Yeah, these 1/1s really don't do anything. Even if Leeroy were to level them up, they can't trade into any of this board. I would have just probably sent it to face and sent everything face here. I mean, this board's probably enough to win as well. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely enough to win.
And Leeroy doesn't run anything like Divine Favor. Not that Divine Favor would have helped him in the slightest in this matchup, because both of them had very low hand sizes.
Yep.
Leeroy desperately hoping Giggling Inventor is going to get him there, but I think a Hagatha coming down is going to ruin his day, because that's lethal, I believe, with Hagatha.
That is indeed lethal. Paradox just writing down, I have lethal. Or something illegible. I
have no idea what that said, Paradox, unfortunately.
He said, I won a game.
Is this his first game that he would have won in the entire Premiership? No, he's 1-1.
It's doing better than me, I cannot say anything.
It said Jumbray 0-2, did it? Feels bad, man.
Justice for Jumbray, I think is what it wrote.
Well, 1-1 in the series, and Paradox manages to get a win under his belt with that Shaman, and now he has to choose between his Warlock and his Rogue. So has that odd Rogue left, and also the classic heal package Zoolock ready to rumble. And Leeroy with these kind of quirky, kind of homebrewy takes on Odd Paladin and also on the Lock himself.
Yeah, comparing the Locks, Paradox's one definitely has the higher sort of ceiling to it in terms of high roll potential. It has the Keliseth, it has the Happy Ghouls, so you can get onto the board a lot more explosively. I
mean, I think I've seen people have like 8 power on board, double Happy Ghoul turn 1 type stuff.
Yeah. I'm getting pretty sick of it. Ladder. if you were playing ladder right now around sort of rank 5 to 1, there's about 80% Zoolocks right now.
Well, there you go, guys. Jumbray has told you that you find a deck that counters Zoolock to the biggest extent, and you just run that. Because that's all it is from rank 5 to 1, in case you're wondering. Right, we're going to move on into this next game here, and we'll see who can take the lead in this series. Leeroy did... I mean, I didn't hate that Odd Paladin deck. I thought it was okay. I think there's definitely the ability to counter out some of the classic matchups. Like, I think it will do better against Evenlock, for instance, because you have that ability to go Tool, whereas you classically got boned by Evenlock with Odd Paladin before. But now he's going to be going up against Odd Rogue here, and that's a decent opening hand for Paradox.
I mean,
lots of wands.
This is typically a very strong matchup for Odd Paladin.
Yeah.
It's really hard for the Rogue to keep the Paladin off the board, simply because Rogue's hero power kills one thing, and Paladin's hero power makes 2 things. Yes. So over time, the Paladin's just going to pull ahead.
It's just pure math, Jumbray.
But if you were playing the Rogue side, one of the things you want is a lot of 1-drop, particularly
Firefly.
And Paradox has that in spades right now.
I think Firefly mulligan win rate against Odd Paladin must be so much higher than anything else.
So...
the mech-possessed villager. Glad to see it.
A lot of this matchup is basically who wins the board early. So both players kind of going, you know, I want to get the board now, putting all their stuff on as much stats as they can on the board straight away.
Leeroy, a little nod to the head, says that that's a double Firefly in the opening hand there. And that is a beefy board for an Odd Paladin to want to deal with. However, he still retains 4 power on board and equal trading potential across the board as well.
So what Leeroy wants to do now is reduce the number of minions. When he's got Purifier's Maul, the wider he can go, the fewer attacks that Paradox has to clear his minions, the better. That way he can get off that Purifier's Maul and kind of secure his position on the board. It looks like it's going to be very hard to do that at this stage because Paradox just has so many 1-drops available.
I think next turn's probably not even a Purifier's Maul turn. It might even be a hero power and play the 1-drop. Yeah,
I agree. I think you just got to keep just going wide and wide, and then hopefully the Maul will be good maybe on turn 5 where you can combine it with a hero power.
And also if he manages to retain that mech, he has got the turn 5 war gear as well.
Yep. I mean, going Tool against a Rogue's not
the best because of Vilespine.
Yeah, because of Vilespine Slayer. I think Leeroy's just going to go wide again, hopefully, and draw maybe another 1-drop next turn.
Yeah, because the Rogue can pretty much clear everything up that he sees on board here. He even has another Flame Elemental in hand. It's actually probably the ideal start for Paradox going up against Leeroy. But again, the more damage that as the rogue has to use to clear board, the less damage he gets to jam face, and then you're in that. Sometimes get to that eternal point where you're like, I can't contest the board forever. I have to at some point turn my attention to hitting him in the face really hard.
So Paradox has done an excellent job of contesting these early minions, but he doesn't really have any meat on his board for follow-up. All he has is these 1-drops. And after that, he's got Vilespine, Slayer, and Leeroy. Vilespine has no activator until turn 6. And it's not looking amazing in terms of follow-up. So if Leeroy can still keep going wide, it might be potential problems for Paradox.
Odd Paladin, of course, he can keep going wide. His hero power does it. I actually like this play from Paradox.
So Paradox is like saying, I need to put on some pressure here. I can't really keep the Paladin off the board forever.
Yeah.
I've got a Leeroy in hand, I've got a deckhand in hand. Maybe I can get there with face damage.
And there's no way that he knows of for Leeroy to deal with this 5-1 right now. Yeah,
he only has one attack available. He'd have to use a weapon, which means he's taking the damage anyway. And Leeroy's hand right now is just awful.
It's not good, and he now has to make that decision of just hit a hero power and hope, or use that maul and take the 10 damage over the course of 2 turns to the face, which is exactly what Paradox probably wanted, I think, because he's got that Leeroy and deckhand in hand. Needs to start chipping away. That was a good play from Paradox, and it's put Leeroy in a very awkward position.
So for Leeroy, he might be counting how much damage can come out from the rogue, because if he just goes wide again here, Paradox is left with the decision of whether he wants to clear up all of the Paladin's board straight away. Because if Leeroy just takes this 5 for 3 turns, he's still alive. And if he can get off a Purifier's Maul on his turn 5, he can maybe follow that up with a level up down the line.
Yeah.
And kind of keep Paradox off the board.
Well, level up is definitely, for me, that key card in this matchup here, because it just creates that wall that the rogue really doesn't have a good way to deal with.
Yeah, so Paradox here is kind of left in an awkward spot. It's like, I could go for the face plan, but in doing so...
I play into that level up plan for Leeroy.
Yeah. I mean, right now he can at least deal with both of the dudes for this turn without using his 5-1, which is quite appealing.
You could even... This turn could even just be deckhand Edwin if you really wanted to. Like, you could just deckhand into the... You could deckhand into the remaining 1-1 and then just slam Edwin. Yeah.
I honestly think that turn... It's possible it should have been just a tempo Vilespine.
Yeah?
Yeah. The reason being is that you don't have any 1-drops. You've used a lot of them. This Vilespine is just going to come down as a tempo tool next turn. But it shuts out some potential ease of mana turns next turn. If you draw like a free drop next turn, you're in an awkward spot where you can just drop a free drop and that's it. Or you can drop your Vilespine. It's kind of a bit awkward.
This turn feels like hero... I mean, he's got options, right? You could slam a tempo war gear, but if it feels like it could be Purifier's Maul with hero power turn and then hope that you can get to next turn with something intact to play a level up on.
Yeah.
The other option is could be slam Nightmare Amalgam, but that's a free trade for the Edwin, and then you've still got the 1-1s that don't survive. So
in terms of survivability, he does have a Ziliax in hand.
Yes.
So if he is worried for his health total down the line, that could be a potential way to get out of that. Right now, he's got to play for board, and going for this line threatens that level up, which Paradox is quite scared of.
That's a dead draw.
And how does Paradox respond to this? He's not got quite enough damage. He's very close. If there's no taunts available...
3 off? 2 off.
2 off, yeah. If there's no taunts available, he can kill him with the dagger next turn and the Leeroy.
You never want to blow your Leeroy early, though. That's the problem. You always feel like most part, once that's gone, they're like, okay, I don't have to worry about that anymore. I just need to play my game plan to keep myself safe as possible. However, if he did, he would be facing 2 Divine Shield level up taunts. It's going to be the tempo Vilespine from him. Probably the only play that made sense in the hand.
Yeah. I mean, this is fine. Like you kind of put Leeroy in a spot where he's not really on board too much, and you're still threatening that lethal for the next turn. Yeah,
because if Leeroy doesn't play level up this turn, then...
I mean, you can go for Ziliax as well.
I think Ziliax, is, for me, is probably the best option.
Yeah. And then potentially you can go for a hero power level up on your turn 7. So I imagine that he's going to at least think about whether he wants to use Divine Shield or his face here.
He must be really worried about... I mean, what kills you? I guess Leeroy Coldblood would kill you.
Right. I mean,
if he uses face.
He will get another bit of healing from the Ziliax, of course.
Yes.
Now, Paradox is probably thinking, should I trade here or go face? And I think he'll probably go for a trade.
A level up which kills his Vicious, and Vicious is another win condition for him. If he doesn't, that's going to be 3 3/3s on board. Leroy gives the little thumbs up.
Oh, that might be even better than level up here, because you can do that and hero power.
Yeah, and
Paradox
you can build an even bigger board next turn.
For the level up.
Yeah.
You just kill the fledgling here with your face, and I think Leroy's just got back into this game.
Damn. It looked touch and go for Leroy. He's not out of the woods totally, but there's now that point where rogues can't deal with wide boards very well.
And Paradox just doesn't have a play.
Nope. It's going to be tempo fast mine again, I think. Or, here's a thing. Leroy to fill up the boards. There can't be any more 1-1s on the end. Oh, that's a heads-up play right there.
That's a great play. Assuming they don't trade into your minion.
Yeah. Well, shh. This looks like a spicy, easy hero power level up turn. But you could also just go...
There's an argument for... you've seen both Vile Spines now. There's an argument for the War Gear.
The War Gear on the Divine Shield. Yeah.
Is potentially very strong here.
And then, I mean, you don't need to play level up right now because you know that those Vile Spines are down. He can't really get through this taunt easily. What do you die to? You could... no, you can't die to much. I don't think you can die to anything at this point. Because you've seen the Vile Spines, the only thing that would be in range of killing you is Leroy Coldblood hit with the dagger. But Leroy's going to play it super safe.
I mean, it's kind of pick your poison here. Both lines seem to be winning for Leroy. This is just too much board for the Rogue to handle, I think. And he's just going to start pushing the pressure onto Paradox now.
Ooh, Blink Fox
is a potential way out. Sometimes.
What could he Blink Fox that would give him a good position here?
A Steed, I think, would probably be the strongest card to get. Spikeridge Steed. It's going to certainly put up quite a Repentance.
Repentance doesn't do anything, I'm afraid, for a deck that loves its 1-1s.
Yeah, not the best card.
Not the best card. But I guess there is the argument that Leroy will have to think about what it is, but he'll just jam face and see what happens, I guess. There's some trades that he can make.
Oh.
Vine Cleaver's good.
Vine Cleaver is not lethal, and Leroy doesn't know what Secret is, by the way. There is, I don't think, any way for Leroy to actually die through these 3/3 taunts. Even
if he trades in both, there's
even
no
something
way.
like Leroy, Cold Blood, and Deadly Poison to get through all the taunts only does 10 damage. He could play it safe and just kill one of these 3/3s, but because he doesn't know what the secret is, I don't think he wants to trigger something like Redemption or the new Paladin secret.
He's already used one South Sea deckhand, hasn't he?
Yeah, the thing is he has to get through the taunts, which is why 11's a very safe health total.
Yeah, and Leroy takes that win with the Paladin. It was a long road to recovery in those early turns. It did feel like it took a while to get there, but regardless, he managed and takes a 2-1 up in the series. And now we go to that Warlock deck for Leroy. That's the interesting one.
I've been excited. I've been waiting to see this one actually.
Do you know what? He is running Doom Guards in it, so you know he's sort of running that sort of heavy face damage. Is he running Soulfire? Yeah, I mean he's got double Soulfire. I mean, there's always a way you can just through pure zoo tactics sneak in. And against that rogue, I would even say it's favoured to an extent.
Well, potentially. I mean, the rogue does have good matchups with its weapon into things like Flame Imp, which could potentially be a problem. But Leroy's gone for extra 1/3s in his deck with the Crystallizer, which is definitely going to help him in that particular matchup.
Yeah, so he's running 2 Crystallizers, 2 Flame Imps, no, 1 Crystallizer, 2 Flame Imps, 2 Kobold Librarians, 2 Void Walkers, 2 Direwolf Alphas, 2 Knife Jugglers.
Yeah, potentially bad for him running those 2-mana 2/2s in his deck against
against the odd rogue. But then again, it's one of those situations where it's like if he can actually in the early board go wide with these sort of non-Vile Spine-esque, type of... I mean, the only thing you want a Vile Spine in this entire deck might be a Doomguard. Or a Fungal Mansard something, Dark Iron Dwarf potentially.
I wouldn't turn my nose up at Vast Final and Dark Iron Dwarf,
yeah,
to be honest.
it's a 4-4. I mean, it's not too bad. Right, we're going to jump into the mulligan here, and we'll finally get to see this deck in action. He's got the Kobold, got the Direwolf. What are you looking for here? Just those 1/3s?
I think 1/3s are very important on this sort of mulligan phase. Soul Infusion is actually a very nice tech card because it does, if you can land it on something like the Voidwalker, which is the leftmost minion right now, it's going to block off that dagger from being able to trade into your minions. So I think it's actually quite a strong mulligan for Leeroy, even though it doesn't look it, because he's missing a lot of the early game.
Good mulligan for Paradox, though. Double Firefly again, and he's got Giggling Inventor in hand, too.
Yes, Giggling Inventor is incredibly strong against Zoo. They often, in the mid-game, start to get beefy minions like Doom Guards, like Fungal Mastered boards, and trading those into Divine Shields, taunts, it feels very bad.
Leeroy does also have the Solarium, so that is the 1-mana Warlock spell. Allows you to draw 3 minions. You have to play them, though, otherwise they get discarded. Thanks for telling me that earlier, John. Soul Infusion is going to come down. I think he's going to coin out the
He's going for the coin and basically hoping that he can draw well off the top of his deck, because at least right now he doesn't have great plays. He could actually go for a Solarium looking for a 1-drop next turn.
Yes.
And then try and curve out with the dust back into the chain gang. Because this 3/5 right now, barring a Cold Blood from Paradox, it's very hard for him to get through.
And how Paradox would have to tank it twice with his dagger. I mean, he could trade in the Firefly, tank this turn, and then dagger next turn and play a 1-drop again.
Yeah, now that's a scary proposition if you're against Heal Zoo, because there's always the worry that Leeroy's just going to heal his minion back up if you start swinging weapons and not killing it.
Yes.
But Leeroy's not running the Heal Zoo, so Paradox could just be free here to just swing his dagger into this 3/5, knowing there's not really any way for Leeroy to stop it dying next turn. I think playing like the Fireflies here don't really achieve too much.
I think he's going for that turn. He knows there's no healing in Leeroy's deck. Remember, there is an open deck list. Not going to trade in, though. Wants to do it next turn.
Yeah, this is basically saying, if you want to do this value trade, you're not pushing 3 damage to my face.
Is this Solarium 10, or is it just life tap?
I think it's Solarium.
I think you just need to get a 1-drop.
You need to get on the board.
Yeah.
Like, thinking of the potential value of Solarium down the line.
What's worst case scenario for him discarding with Solarium in this deck, do you think?
If he gets like Fungal Monster, Doom Guard, just unplayable, anything that's not a 1-drop is bad.
Yeah.
I mean, he does have the Soul Infusion for his Dust back on next turn. Playing a 3-mana 3/5 is not the worst. So you could just go for a Soul Infusion. I really don't like going for the tap. I'd rather just play Soul Infusion for the Dust back. Something you might be looking at is like...
Oh, why did you trade? What are you scared of if you trade there? That's what I'm trying to work out. What are you scared of if you trade? I would have just jammed 3 damage into face.
Yeah, I think that's just a missed 3 damage there, because Paradox is just always going to use his weapon on this 3/2 here.
I don't know what Paradox is saying, but he's...
I think
he's like, why did you trade?
Shock of why
is there no 2-drop and why did you trade?
Paradox, just about the only person who likes the sound of his own voice as he talks through each and every game to himself, just saying, what shall I do this turn? Making sure it doesn't sound completely bonkers when he goes for it. One of the downsides of going for this fledgling now is it potentially offers Leeroy a swing turn with the Soulfire.
It's all right, Paradox. It's just a game of Hearthstone. You're not skydiving. Why would you do that? Is that what he's saying? Why would you do that?
So another tap from Leeroy, and Leeroy is taking this very slowly, which is Leeroy obviously very distraught about that, because I think his plan was to isolate this chain gang on the left side of his hand, and then buff it for two 4/5s, which is very strong.
Paradox can now refill them. I mean, who's the Zoo player here? Paradox is starting to put that pressure down on board. Leeroy now doesn't really, I mean, not really many good answers. He could chain gang, but doesn't feel good because it just dies.
I mean, now that that plan that he was going for is out the window, what choice did he have?
I mean, it doesn't feel like he's got a choice at all, but it's just not a good place for a Zoolock to be in, right?
Yeah, and he's already used a Soulfire. which didn't swing the board in his favour, which is one of the few ways that the Zoo deck has of creating those swing turns. His mana doesn't line up very well this turn.
No.
The board trades against a chain gang feel awful.
What you do have, though, is that if you play this, you stop Paradox. Nah, you see, you'd be worried about Fungalmancer. You'd be worried about so many things here.
I think Leroy's just got to just play to his curve here and say, I hope my stats are enough, despite the value trades that are happening.
So now for Paradox, he's got options. He can obviously dagger up and trade in. He'll get good trades across the board, clear the board up, or he could just slam Giggling.
Potentially.
What do you think is the best option for Paradox here?
I mean, they're all quite nice. The thing with doing the dagger now is that you have it for next turn as well, when your turn also might be quite booked up. You don't really need the Divine Shields right now. So I imagine he's going to go for a dagger and a few one-drops. He's got plenty to spare. You have some available for Vile Spines down the line, etc.
Well, he makes that trade every day of the week with the Edwin, and he's gone for the Giggling instead here.
I mean, this is fine as well.
Both. It was, again, another of those pick your poisons. Both of them are good. Duskpack does give Leeroy a way onto the board because he has dealt damage to himself this turn.
Yeah. One of the problems with Duskpack went behind is that it's so easy to value trade into all of it. You're not making the most of your stats when your opponent's dictating those trades.
That's a spicy tamale right there.
Definitely.
Fungalmancer. But Dagger, whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, he can play whatever he wants, I think, at this point. I mean, there's really nothing that Paradox can do wrong here.
I mean, typically when you're against the Zoo and you're ahead, one thing you want to keep in your mind is Despicable Dreadlord.
Yes.
But Leeroy doesn't actually run it.
No, he doesn't.
So keeping your things above 1 health isn't actually a concern that Paradox needs to have. All he can actually just value trade as greedily as he wants, which he is doing here. And there's no punish from Leeroy for it.
And he's got the very Zoo-esque board, like we said. He's even going to trade the 4-1 in.
Yeah.
I mean, taking it to the extreme with these value trades.
And barring an insane knife juggler, I'm not sure Leeroy has much to come back here.
Stop copying me!
All right, well, doubling Imp's going to come down. And he gets 2 decent, but obviously not enough really to get him back into a solid position here.
Seems like he might need another one of those.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for Paradox, he just needs to keep Leeroy off the board. And it's very easy to do so with this hero power lining up so well. And you just keep the Zoo off the board, and the face damage is just going to come naturally as you build up your advantage.
And he's still got all these 1-drops to continue filling up the board with.
The light protects
and he will do so by slamming those 1-drops.
Probably wants to hold he has to hold on to one because of board space, but I would imagine he would have held on to 1.
For an activator from Cold Blood or something. So the Solarium comes out here. Let's see what it draws. Doomguard? Fungalmancer? And Fungalmancer.
Oh.
Got to be the 3 worst draws that you could have had. Leeroy's face just says, okay.
Flesh fails. Try crystal.
I imagine Leeroy's not too upset about losing this game, as it is fairly unfair for him, particularly the variant of Zoo that he is running. With no Dreadlords and with no heal package for those explosive starts, and with a lot of 2/2s in it.
Is he going to be favoured against that explosive start Warlock, though? That's the problem. I feel like that Warlock can just take so many good value trades because of the healing.
Yeah, that's the thing of that matchup. If you can get on the board first, you've got the advantage. It's just a case of who gets on the board first, and the heal Zoo has that potential to get on the board a lot more explosively.
Yeah.
The light protects me.
I think pending some incredible turnaround here, this is going to be very close.
Now, Leeroy doesn't even run Giggling Inventor, so there's no chance of really Paradox being locked out of going face next turn, I don't think.
Paradox just saw 2 Fungalmancers ditched and he still traded.
I mean, it's kind of a case like, it doesn't really matter. No. I think both players know the game's been over for a few turns right now.
Yeah.
It's just a formality at this point, I think. Although there is a fair amount of taunts that Leeroy was able to muster from his deck there.
Deadly Poison does help get through some of them, and we can just top. I think this is lethal. I'm pretty sure this is lethal. Yeah, absolutely 100% with Leeroy.
Yep. He's got enough get through just about.
Literally 2 extra damage excess. And Leeroy will have to say goodbye to that rogue, and he will have to face up against the Warlock.
Yep, he says hello to Leeroy and goodbye to the rogue.
How many times have we...
I know, it's a terrible pun. It's just too easy to grab it. And
when you call yourself literally after a card,
yep,
that's what's going to happen.
You deserve it.
You deserve it. So we now have the Warlock, which is the heal Warlock, coming up from Paradox, going up against Leeroy's kind of weird traditional Zoolock, I would say. Like, let's call it the Boomsday traditional Zoolock. It's
a bit of both.
Bit of both, yeah.
Bit of the past, bit of the future.
But, you know, and that game was a good start for Paradox. He had a really good opening hand to deal with the Zoo. Leeroy could have very easily run away with it, but though all those really good answers were there, and Leeroy also made weird trades, you know, jamming that into 1-2 instead of hitting him in the face. Not that it would have made too much difference, but regardless. Got to pick up on those kind of things, boys. And now we go in and we're probably saying that if Paradox can get on the board explosively, favoured in this matchup.
Yeah, I think just across the board, his deck list is just better, honestly. I think Leeroy's just gone a little bit too out there with his tech choices this one. He's missing things like Giggling Inventor, which is like a hugely strong card, even in Zoo decks from this expansion. He's missing the heal package, of course, and he's missing Prince Keleseth. So in terms of who's favoured, in decklist-wise, I'd say Paradox, but we'll see what happens in the game.
It all happens on the draws, does it not? And Paradox has got a decent opening hand to choose from. Kobold, Voidwalker, Voodoo Doctor, and the Fungal Enchant is obviously a pretty important card for making those trades against the opposing Zoolock.
Now, Leeroy's hand is very nice. He's got the extra. He's got the 1/3, which he put an extra 1 in his deck for. He's going first, which means he gets to take the trade straight away, and he has the Direwolf to follow up, which potentially allows him to construct further value trades that he wouldn't be able to get normally.
Yep, absolutely. And now Paradox has got a very heavy set of 1-drops. No Keleseth yet, but still has one more turn to draw it.
Now, one of the things with this Heal Zoo is they don't have any way to buff attack of minions early on. The only thing is Fungal Monster on turn 5. So when it comes to killing a 1/3 on turn 1, there isn't a great way.
Actually, Warlock, he is running Arcurus Veteran, and he's not running Light Warden.
Oh, interesting.
He's also running Doubling Imp himself. So it's not a total heal package, Warlock.
Yeah, it's kind of... I missed that on the first glance, but yeah, so Arcurus Veteran is potentially a way, but of course, buffing a 1 attack to 2 doesn't get through this 1/3.
Nope. Neither will the Direwolf here.
So...
Oh, that's what Leeroy wanted, by the way. The
oh, he's got it.
He's got it.
He's got it this time.
Next turn, he's ready for it. The 4/5s.
As long as he can not discard it next turn. If he gets a Soulfire, you can guarantee he's never playing it.
Do you just Voodoo Doctor your Voidwalker back up here?
I don't think so. I think you want to save that for a heal. I don't think this being on 1/3 helps that much because the 2/2 and a 2/2 trade, and you don't really have great responses.
I mean, the only thing that the heal helps him out with is the Voodoo Happy Ghoul, right?
Yeah, but that's a potential way back in later on, or he could use it on one of his chain gangs if he gets a value trade down the line. So I think just searching for your deck is better here when the heal doesn't matter too much this turn.
Pretty good turn 3 if you're Leeroy. You can actually use everything and then start to tap as well later down the line. So
yeah, this is a play your hand.
This is like, I've got 3 mana, I've got 3 1-drops. I just slam that.
And the Soul Infusion is incredibly strong here, buffing up his chain gang for the next turn.
He's going to take the trade into the 2/1.
I mean,
is there any reasoning you would do that? Any reasoning why you would take that trade?
The only reason not to do it is if Paradox doesn't attack and, say, puts up a load of taunts, and you want to get that off the board.
But Paradox feels like he's the one that's having to trade right now. Yeah.
So, again, it could be a case where Leeroy just missed 2 face damage. But Leeroy has such a strong follow-up, he might just be playing extra safe just because he knows he's going to pull ahead on board on the next turn.
Paradox still has the option of the coin here, which lends that coin Saronite if he wants to do that. And then he has to make that choice between, do I trade into a Direwolf or do I trade into the 4-2? Obviously, the best value trade on board is the 4-2 into the 2-1.
Yeah.
But obviously, Direwolf is something that you will have to consider being a nuisance if it gets behind a taunt.
Why do you call?
So it's kind of reasonable here to go quite wide. Try and set up for the coin fungal monster next turn. It's a bit awkward to get through this 2-3 with a 2-3 and a 2-1. You don't really want to be trading your Direwolf off here.
That's a good follow-up to a turn 4, 2 4-5s.
Yeah, and the great thing about these 4-5s is even if facing down a fungal monster, there isn't actually great buff targets for trades on the opposite end.
No, I mean, the Voidwalker would survive, but it wouldn't kill.
Yeah.
The other two wouldn't kill either and also wouldn't survive. So it's not a great set of targets for a Fungalmancer, like you said there.
So if I was Leeroy, I don't think I would be doing any trades here. You could consider bumping the 2-3 into the 2-3, but passing here just seems like the best option.
And, sorry, yeah, so it's even a 5-5 as well with the Direwolf. That makes the Voidwalker trade terrible as well. I mean, obviously you don't take that one there, but... I
mean, Spellbreaker and Soulfire here is not bad because it lets you get through both of the taunts and get a value trade on the Direwolf Alpha.
Yes, you're a 50-50 to lose your Fungalmancer though.
Yeah, if you lose the Fungal, you have the Saronite to just play on the board.
True.
If you lose the Saronite, you have the Fungal potentially. Honestly,
you're probably worse off losing the Saronite.
Yeah,
making trades.
It might be a case where you'll be off the board next turn, so you'd rather have the Saronite for refill. But we'll see which one gets discarded.
Let's see where he goes. The Fungal, so at least he gets to keep that board. Like you said, you can just straight up play Saronite on board, which is not bad. But honestly, Leeroy's got that Fungal this turn, and that's actually a nice board to Fungal because it's a beefy board as well, those 3 health minions.
Yeah, and then the follow-up of a Dustback with the tap next turn gets the activator. I don't think you want to do it now. I mean, you could potentially, because you do have 2 value trades already available. You could go tap Dustback, and then you have the Fungal Mancer ready for next turn.
Yes, because you'll still have those things on board to trade into. So, and you know that the Dustbat, something on board is going to get Fungal to trade into the Saronite. So.
Yep. And again, Paradox also is not running Despicable Dreadlord, so having all your things on 1 health cannot be punished from Paradox. So a tap Dustback is potentially a play here, just to go wide, and then make use of the Fungal Mancer buff to get juicy value trades. I mean, the trades here are okay. You get to kill the Spellbreaker and the 2-1, but then the 2-1 Voodoo Doll on the other end just kills your 3-1, and you're not that far ahead.
It's a good draw of Paradox. It means he can use all of his mana this turn, so at least gets more on board. Be very happy to see a 1-drop off the back of that Saronite.
Yeah, the Saronite lines up very well against this 2-2. Yeah. Yes, the 4-3 does get a value trade, but then you get your own value trade back into the 2-2, and you're going wider on the board. So it looks like Paradox might be getting back into this.
He's definitely up there. Doubling Imp is there for Leeroy as well. However, I think he just wants to activate that Dustbat. A 1-drop off the tap would be great too, or he has the option of another Saronite.
Now, Saronite's really nice here because it protects your 2-2 from getting value traded on the other end.
Yeah. That's good as well. And also, it deals with the Imp. Doomguard is a good draw off the top when you don't have to
this is really, really good draw here. It lets you get that value trade on the 2-2.
It lets you get the value trade.
Yeah.
However, you know, Leeroy still has the card advantage right now as well.
Yeah, this could be a case where Leeroy just...
Oh, look at this turn. Wow.
So Leeroy's gone incredibly wide here and decided not to trade.
What a top deck there for Paradox.
Oh, wow.
Fungal is great.
Yeah, I don't like this not trade from Leeroy. Like, it just gets punished by this. This heal.
Yeah, double Fungal coming out here. He could, I mean, I think you do double Fungal, right? Yeah, absolutely. Every day of the week. Take another trade with the Doomguard and heal up again.
Yeah, it seems better than getting a tap in this turn. I think, I mean, at the worst case, Paradox could have just done that trade for Leeroy. So by not doing it, you've given the opportunity for Paradox to say, oh, I found something better.
But Leeroy gets the Soul Infusion onto the Doomguard.
Wow, and that's going to cleanly kill
the other Doomguard.
The other Doomguard.
And Leeroy can trade off the entire board here as well.
Yeah, he's got to decide whether he wants to. Probably does, because it saves his 1-1 from, again, getting value traded. And with Paradox on such a high health total, the face damage is less important here. Again, it's another game of swings.
It is, indeed. That's not I mean, that's just a good way to go wide here against the Doom Guard. You're going to force Leeroy to continue to make value trades or to continue to make trades with that Doom Guard, which is not what you want when you've got a 7-4 on board. You do want to jam it face at some point.
Yep. Dark Iron Dwarf would be a nice pickup. Soulfire's not bad. Just decide whether he wants to use it. Probably does.
Yeah, I think so. I like the 7 damage to face here.
Yeah, I think this can keep going back and forth, but exactly. Somebody's got to put down the pressure, and Leeroy's deciding that's going to be him. Better
late than never for Keleseth. And off the top, he gets Giggling Inventor off the top. What a draw for him. And now actually...
That's the best draw. Leeroy is incredibly upset about it.
He's not happy about that top deck. And now Paradox is like, do I trade my 2 2/2s into the 7-4 because I've got this Giggling Inventor on board?
I think you take one value trade into the 1-1 and another 2-2. Yeah. It's going to stop the Doom Guard really getting through, and then you can maybe push face damage. He might be thinking, I could just go full face here and try and set up a counter lethal, but then you start losing your taunts a bit more quickly.
Yeah, they'll all go down this turn, and then depending on what Leeroy draws, you could be stuck in the mud.
It could be a case of trade this value trade and then send the other one face. But no, he's just going to try and go for the board control route.
Knife Juggler and Kobold. Oof, this is going to be close, actually.
So hitting... There's 3 good targets for this Knife Juggle. Didn't get one of them.
Soulfire off the top. Soulfire will get rid of the 3-2, however.
Yeah, this could be a case of just trying to get more stats onto the board, because you know it's going to take a while to get through onto Paradox's side.
This is going to come down to the next few turns. Oh, Saronite with its buffed up Keleseth version is big. He also
and
gets
a Soulfire to deal with the Doom Guard.
7-3. This is looking more and more like Paradox's game now. For Leeroy and Paradox, it's been a swing one from left, right, and center. But the Keleseth feels like it's going to be too much value now for Leeroy to have to get through. I like that as well. That basically is one-off lethal next turn.
Assuming Leeroy doesn't tap, he's going to do that.
And Leeroy's dead. I think basically dead.
Not quite, actually, because of this trade.
It's one-off, but it's almost there. I mean, you only need 1 damage, and Paradox runs another Doom Guard, right? And he runs another Soulfire, I think, unless he's already used another one.
Even if he doesn't find lethal, he'll get it sooner or later. And Leeroy loses. Paradox takes the series of a very, very close back-and-forth final game between the 2 Zoo lists.
Yeah. Hello. I don't know what he wrote there. Hello, Leeroy. Something on his.
I hope it was just goodbye, Leeroy.
I think, yeah, maybe that would have been good.